Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and I have great amazing news for you today. So if you've been following my quarantine journeys since the first day, I'm currently on my day 4 of the hotel quarantine. I'm currently in Cebu, Philippines because I wanted to visit my mother, supposedly a surprise to her on her birthday. However, she found out that I am coming, so it's no longer a surprise, but she's still happy nonetheless that I'm coming here in spite all these uncertainties. And actually, I just would like to share this insight, if you would call it. Few days ago, I believe it was the first day of my hotel quarantine, I was really praying to God, my father, like, God, Father, I call him my father, like, Father, give me an opportunity to be out of this, quarantine in a shorter span of time, because I want to enjoy like being here in Cebu instead of, having a memory of Cebu, my hotel quarantine, and it's a very not so pleasant experience to be isolated. You don't have, much mobility. You can't go out, and the housekeeping staff could not even clean your room. So for me, it's like not really a very pleasant experience as a hotel stay, like being here in Cebu. So I was praying to God, like, I just want to, have this quarantine time shorter because I'm fully vaccinated from Norway, and Norway is already on the, safe zone countries. So coming here, I had my swab test in Norway 48 hours prior to my flight, which shows negative. And then on my first day here, upon disembarking in the Mactan Cebu International Airport, they did a swab on me. I didn't receive any, feedback from them that I'm positive. So they said if I don't receive any feedback from them, that means I have negative test results. So now it's day 4, no feedback. That means I'm negative. So I'm like, this is too much paranoia. Like, when I came here in the Philippines, it's as if I'm guilty until proven innocent. And this is like, somehow disheartening. I know I am most of the time positive. Most of the time I see the silver lining in all things, in most things. However, being isolated, I don't know. I'm far from my husband, I'm far from my family in the Philippines, and I just feel like day 4, I'm running on thin ice. My patience, even my positivity. So I believe there's some psychological thing that's happening being isolated. It must be much harder for people who face maximum isolation. Like when I watch the movies, and then there are some guys in prison, and then they are subjected to maximum isolation, like in a small cubhole in the prison. So that must do something psychologically. And I'm just here in the hotel. It's not as bad as a prison. But there's something about having your freedom curtailed in a way that you couldn't go out, do the things that you want, even have a view of nature, just, trees, air, or even talk to someone else. So that kind of psychologically, that has a bearing on someone. So for those who have endured a 10-day hotel facility or whatever facility quarantine, I really salute you. 10 days is not easy being isolated, and I really have high respects for those who have underwent a 10-day isolation and afterwards they are not positive in COVID. They're actually negative in terms of the PCR test, but they still have to undergo those 10 days. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling now that I'm on my day 4. So breathe in and breathe out. Tomorrow's a better day, and I know that my God, my Father, is always with me. He will never leave me nor forsake me, even in this kind of situation, even in the emotional roller coaster. So moving forward, the good news. So what's the good news? I actually got wind of news. So thank God for Wi-Fi. There's technology and Wi-Fi and smartphones. So I saw this news. I was reading. I was just browsing through current events in Google, and there's this news from the Philippine News Agency that I am very excited to share with you. It's from the Republic of the Philippines. IATF, Interagency Task Force, revises COVID-19 protocols for green and yellow states. So green states, according to the Bureau of Quarantine list, are just comprised of less than 50 countries. So those countries with a smaller population, and they barely have any COVID cases these days, like New Zealand, Poland, Honduras, the islands like Marshall Islands, Cook Islands, Mali. So those countries, you can find those countries when you just type Google and then green list countries in the Philippines, or BOQ, Bureau of Quarantine list. So there. But the news today is that they have already approved a resolution in the government. According to IATF, Interagency Task Force, EID, Emerging Infectious Diseases. So according to presidential spokesperson Harry Duque, so I was remembering his name, Mr. Harry Duque, he said that the countries that the passengers coming from international flights in both green and yellow listed countries. So Norway is currently on the yellow listed countries, according to the list in the BOQ of the Philippines. So yellow list, so that includes Norway and a lot of other European countries like Denmark, Sweden, Germany, etc. So we are in the yellow list, and they have already shortened the number of days of quarantine. So originally, like the knowledge that I received on my day one of my quarantine during the briefing with the Bureau of Quarantine in Mactan, Cebu International Airport, they told me that I would have to undergo a 10-day hotel facility quarantine. If I turn out negative on the 7th day, then on day 11, 12, 13, and 14, I can do my own quarantine at home in my final destination, which is in Tacloban. So in short, it's a mandatory 10-day hotel facility quarantine. So minimum. If I'm negative, then I go home. So for those who are in the yellow listed countries, for those who were listed in the green listed country, like the ones that I mentioned, New Zealand, Poland, so they have to undergo a 7-day hotel facility quarantine and then continue the rest in their home destination. But the good news today, so finally, what's the good news, Feds? So the good news today is that those from the yellow listed countries, instead of having a quarantine in hotel facility for 10 days, it can now be shortened to just 7 days. So instead of 10 days in the hotel, it will now be just 7 days in the hotel. And the second swab test will be on day 5. So the first swab test was upon embarkation, and then the second swab test will be on day 5 for yellow listed countries. So for me, if they are already implementing it right on, including me that is in the middle of my hotel quarantine, I should be swabbed tomorrow. So let's see. Let's find out. I would know. I will tell you if indeed I would be swabbed tomorrow, if that resolution applies to me, even though I arrived on Monday and then the resolution was just approved on the 8th of October, just today. So let's see. So for those who are coming from by the way, I wasn't able to mention that the yellow listed country, the example that I shared with you earlier, the yellow listed country, and if you are fully vaccinated, then instead of 10 days, you will now just be in the hotel facility for 7 days instead of 10. If you're from the yellow listed or green listed country and you are fully vaccinated. Otherwise, if you are not fully vaccinated, you're just partially vaccinated, 1 instead of 2 doses, or you are unsure about your vaccination status, then the old regulation still applies. So isn't that good news? For me, it's good news. And I really pray that that applies to me, because I'm praying I'm really praying and I'm believing in faith that my stay here in the hotel facility will not be 10 days. Because one of the reasons why I chose this hotel, Appleton Boutique Hotel, aside from I had a good experience in the past, like 3 years ago when I was here in Cebu to attend a Christian conference. Across the street is actually an outlet store, outlet stores of brands like Timberland, Charles and Keith, and other known brands like Crocs. What else? There Havianas. So I kind of forget already what are those brands, but they're just across the street. And I want, like, even though I won't go into the middle of Cebu, which is the Cebu city, the capital of this province, at least I would have that, experience shopping, or, just to enjoy during my short stay here, aside from the quarantine, and then just go straight to the airport and go back, go home in my home city, with my where my mom lives in Tacloban. So that was my prayer, and yeah, we will find out tomorrow. And I'm still believing that my hotel quarantine time will be shortened. And that's good news for those who are planning to travel. To my friends and my new friends who have been following my YouTube and who have been messaging me, asking me questions, because I'm not an expert. I'm not saying that I'm an expert. It's just because I have a first-hand experience and I can share based on my experience. So I hope this helps. If you're planning to travel, this is really good news. If you are fully vaccinated and you're coming from green zone or yellow zone countries, so such as Norway, then instead of serving 10 days in the hotel facility, then it will now be cut to just 7 days. So with the second swab happening on day 5. So I'll let you know what happens tomorrow, and thank you for tuning in. God bless everyone and keep the faith. So God is here with us all the time. There's no, room for fret or worry. I am sometimes guilty of that. Sometimes it just comes and I'm like overwhelmed with the situation, with the emotions, but God's assurance is that Jesus has said that he did not promise a storm-free life. Instead, he promised us a storm-proof life. And that's by holding on to our faith, holding on to the promise of God, and believing that he will make it come to pass. So I believe that it's God's desire to have the family whole. So if you're coming here to the Philippines with the intention to be with your family, if you're planning to have a Christmas vacation here to be with your loved ones, then God honors the desire of your heart, because that's something that's beyond you. You want to do something that will bless your family, and that's beyond you, and God will bless you even more. So yeah, I just want to share that, not just that piece of good news from the Philippine News Agency, but the piece of good news, the huge eternal good news, which is the message of love of our God the Father. So God bless everyone.